I had been married to Kelly for 15 years. Together, we built what I thought was a solid life. We went through highs and lows like any couple. We never had children. Kelly couldn't conceive, but we still managed to create what I believed was a meaningful bond. But lately, something was undeniably off. The warmth between us had faded into cold politeness. The closeness we once shared had unraveled, thread by thread. Our intimacy had become practically non-existent, and every time I reached out to her, to kiss her, to touch her, she pulled away with excuses that barely held up. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Maybe she was going through something she hadn't yet opened up about. But it didn't take long before things that were once subtle started standing out. Constant texting, the way she laughed at her phone, only to fall silent the second I walked into the room. Late-night whispers on calls. A sudden change in her wardrobe, tighter clothes, brighter lipstick, perfume she hadn't worn in years. It was like she was dressing up for someone new. And the biggest red flag? Her phone was always screened down, like she was hiding something. My instincts screamed at me. I tried to brush it off. I've never been the jealous or paranoid type. But I wasn't naive either. I knew I needed facts, not just feelings. So I hired a private investigator. His name was Harris, an old-school type, the kind of guy who wore tweed jackets and carried a notebook. 3 weeks after I contacted him, he slid a thick folder across a cafe table. We met on the far side of town, away from familiar eyes. "It's all here," he said, stirring his coffee. Inside that folder were photos, phone records, message screenshots, even audio recordings. I hesitated before opening it, my fingers trembling slightly. But when I did, everything changed. There she was, Kelly, my wife, the woman I had loved for over a decade, holding hands with a man I instantly recognized. Her boss. The photos were crystal clear. They weren't just close at a business lunch. They were intimately laughing over drinks, kissing in his car, leaning into each other like teenagers drunk on lust. My chest felt like it was imploding. But Harris wasn't finished. "That's not even the worst of it," he said. My eyes met his. "There's more." He nodded and pushed over a flash drive. "They're planning something. A vacation. Next week. But here's the kicker. They're going to drop it on you right before they leave." And he paused. "You're not supposed to have a say in any of it." "What do you mean?" Harris pulled out his phone and hit play. Kelly's voice came through, chilling and unmistakable. "He's not gonna like this," she said. "George still thinks we're his perfect little couple." Then came the part that made my blood run cold. "We'll make sure he agrees. And if he doesn't, well, we've got options. He's never touched me. But who's going to believe him if I say he did?" The world around me disappeared. My wife, the woman I once trusted with everything, was plotting to ruin me if I didn't comply. She wasn't just cheating. She was preparing to accuse me of abuse if I tried to resist. Harris locked eyes with me. "If they go through with this, you're done. Even if you prove your innocence later, the damage will stick." I clenched my fists under the table, pulse pounding in my ears. "They think they've won," I said slowly. He nodded. "So what now?" I inhaled deeply. "They don't know that I know. And that gives me time." For the next 2 days, I kept my mask on. I smiled when I had to, went through the motions of everyday life as if nothing had changed. But inside, I was planning, calculating. I considered everything, every possible path I could take. At first, darker thoughts crossed my mind. Violent ones. I could wait until Frank showed his face, let rage take over, beat him until he couldn't stand. Or worse. But those thoughts passed. I wasn't going to ruin my own life for them. They weren't worth that. Not even close. Instead, I devised something better. Something smarter. If Kelly wanted freedom, I'd give it to her. But it would cost her everything. Just as I predicted, Friday evening arrived, and she was waiting for me when I walked through the door. She looked too put together. Not just end of the workday clean. She was glowing, freshly done makeup, hair styled just right. And near the front door, there were 2 suitcases standing tall, like a quiet threat. I kept my expression blank. Calm. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. "Going somewhere?" I asked, tossing my keys on the counter. She offered me a half smile, like she had rehearsed it in the mirror. "No, not leaving you, George." She took a step closer, her tone light, almost apologetic. "Just going away for a week." "Oh." I tilted my head slightly. "Where to?" She licked her lips, pausing just long enough for me to catch the hesitation. "With Frank." I felt the temperature in the room drop, but I didn't flinch. "Frank, your boss." She nodded, her voice more clipped now. "Yes. You know him." I crossed my arms. "Is this a company retreat? Or something else entirely?" Her laugh was soft and airy, almost like she was relieved I wasn't throwing a fit. Something else. I stayed silent, waiting her out. She shifted, clearly uncomfortable with the quiet. We're going to, spend time together, she said. It's about exploring. We've talked about this. Sort of. She met my eyes, voice softening. We're going to sleep together, George. That's the plan. I sat down slowly on the couch, staring at her like I was watching a stranger. Kelly stood in place, unsure of what to do with my lack of response. Frank, he's a kind man, she continued, her voice trying to convince me, or maybe herself. He treats me well, listens, makes me feel alive again. I nodded slowly, saying nothing. She tucked her hair behind her ear, eyes darting. I want to repay him for that. Still silent. And I'm attracted to him. I just need to get this out of my system. That's all. When I come back, things will go back to normal. My eyebrows lifted slightly. Normal? Yes, she said, smiling faintly. A week. That's all. Just sex. No emotions. Just exploration. Her voice dipped low, flirtatious. Maybe I'll learn a few tricks. Bring them back to you. She laughed. I didn't. And she finally noticed. George, she started, now unsure. I leaned forward. If you go on this vacation, Kelly, we're done. She blinked. Once. Twice. And then her entire posture shifted. She straightened, her smile disappearing. And with a venom I hadn't heard before, she hissed. If you make this hard, I'll ruin you. I said nothing. I'll file a domestic abuse report, she said. I'll cry online. I'll destroy your reputation. You know how this world works. You'll be the monster, George. No one will care about your side. I leaned back and smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, it was cold. Controlled. So you'd lie in court? I asked. Just for a vacation fling? She didn't even blink. Yes. You know that perjury is still a crime, right? She scoffed. No one's going to care. I'm going, George. You can't stop me. I'm not trying to, I said, my voice flat. You've already chosen. With that, she grabbed her suitcase and moved toward the door. Just before she stepped out, she turned back to me with the smugness of someone who thought they had won. Be a good boy, George, she said. Keep the house clean for me. I smiled, slowly, deliberately. Oh, it'll be clean. Something in my tone must have hit a nerve. She paused for half a second, brows tightening ever so slightly. But then she shook it off, left, and climbed into the waiting cab. As soon as the taillights disappeared, I pulled out my phone. It was time. As soon as Kelly was out of sight, I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. First call, the phone company. I dialed the customer service line, calmly confirming my identity. Hi, I said. I need to cancel a line on my account. The agent asked for verification. I provided everything flawlessly. Whose line are we removing? My wife's. Kelly Smith. Reason for cancellation? I smiled to myself. She won't be needing it anymore. A few seconds later, her phone was disconnected. Whatever conversations she thought she was having from the comfort of secrecy were now nothing more than wishful texts sent into the void. That iPhone in her bag? Now just an overpriced camera. Second call, my credit card provider. Hello. I'd like to remove all secondary users from my credit cards. Which users, sir? Kelly Smith. Another confirmation. Another cancellation. No more dinners on my dime. No more retail therapy. No romantic champagne evenings by the beach. At least not on my wallet. Third call, Donald, my real estate agent. He picked up almost instantly. George, been waiting for your green light. It's time, I said. Sell the house. Donald chuckled. Knew you'd say that. I've got 2 serious buyers lined up. We can move fast. Give me 2 days. I need to tidy up first. I'll handle everything on my end. You sure about this? Never been more sure. Fourth call, Ron Jeremy. No, not that Ron Jeremy. My Ron Jeremy, divorce lawyer extraordinaire. I had contacted him the moment Harris delivered his first suspicions weeks ago. The paperwork had been prepared. All I had to do now was pull the trigger. Start the process. I told him as soon as he answered. No problem. Filing first thing Monday. You'll have everything by the afternoon. Perfect. Fifth and final call, movers. The next morning, a team of packers showed up right on time. Efficient, polite, professional. I pointed to every item that was hers. Clothes, shoes, accessories, toiletries, books, personal keepsakes. All of it goes, I said. Except this. In my hand was her wedding dress. Still in its box, tucked in the corner of the closet like some sacred relic. I held it carefully, ran my fingers along the lace. This was the dress she had worn on the day she promised to stand by me, love me, never betray me. That promise was gone. But the dress? That would have one final role to play. The rest of her possessions were boxed up, labeled, and loaded into a truck. They were going to a storage unit I had rented under her name. I'd leave her a note with the key, eventually. By Sunday, the house was spotless. No trace of her remained. Only my own things and peace. That afternoon, both couples Donald mentioned arrived for separate showings. The first, Mark and Susan, were in their late 30s, looking to upgrade for their growing family. The second, Ethan and Rachel, were newlyweds, bright-eyed and excited for a new chapter. I gave them each a full tour, showing them every corner, every feature. At one point, Susan glanced at me and asked, "It's such a beautiful home. Why are you selling?" I smiled. "Because my wife doesn't need it anymore." There was a pause. Mark and Ethan exchanged looks. Rachel tilted her head. "Oh, did something happen?" I shrugged, casual. "You could say that." They didn't pry further. Curiosity danced in their eyes, but they kept it polite. By Tuesday, the house was sold. Mark and Susan made the winning offer. When we met for the handoff, I walked them through one last time. In the living room, I handed them the keys. "Be sure to change the locks." Mark nodded. "Already planned." Then I handed over a sealed envelope. "What's this?" "A gift," I said. "I already paid the locksmith for you." Susan gasped. "That's incredibly kind of you." I smiled. Just making sure nothing from my past walks back through this door. With one final handshake, I stepped out of the home that had once been filled with shared laughter, arguments, and lies. Each step away felt like I was shedding dead weight. That evening, I met up with Donald at a quiet bar we both liked. Dim lighting, smooth jazz, and none of the people who used to know us as a happy couple. When I walked in, he was already there, sipping on a glass of whiskey, a faint smirk on his face like he had been waiting for this moment. As I took a seat across from him, he slid a thick envelope across the table. I looked at it, then at him. "What's this?" "Call it a little bonus," he said, taking another sip. "The sale went better than expected. Figured I'd kick some of the commission back to you." I raised an eyebrow. "Feeling generous?" He chuckled. "Nah, just celebrating the end of one hell of a story. Consider it a divorce fund." I let out a short laugh. "Who says I'm divorcing her?" Donald leaned back in his chair and gave me a look, the kind of look someone gives when they already know the ending. "The second you told those buyers she wouldn't need the house anymore, I knew." I smiled. "You're a perceptive man." He lifted his glass. "To new beginnings." I clinked my glass against his. "To freedom." Meanwhile, on Molokai Island. From Kelly's perspective, it all began like a dream. The moment she stepped onto the soft sands of Molokai Island, with the tropical breeze brushing against her skin and the scent of salt in the air, it felt like paradise. She was glowing. Frank held her hand tightly as they approached the luxury resort, his grip almost possessive. "You ready for the best week of your life?" he whispered at the check-in desk. She smiled wide. "I've been ready." Their suite overlooked the ocean, but they barely noticed the view. Within minutes, Frank had her in his arms, and they were tangled in hotel sheets. It was frantic, wild, and when it was over, he smirked as he lay back, completely satisfied. "Greatest service on arrival." Kelly giggled, breathless. "Glad to be of service." They ordered room service, barely touched their food, and went at it again before sunset. Frank's touch was intense, overwhelming. His energy didn't slow down for a second. Later, as they lay exhausted on the bed, Kelly turned to him. "What's the plan for tonight?" But Frank was already climbing on top of her again. No dinner plans. No sightseeing. Just more of the same. She didn't complain. At least not out loud. The next morning, the sunlight flooded the room. Kelly slipped out quietly, enjoying the breeze from the balcony. Frank was still asleep. She watched the waves crash against the shore and let herself believe, for a moment, that she was living the life she deserved. Eventually, he stirred and pulled her back into bed. And again, they repeated the cycle: sex, sleep, and little else. But by noon, something felt off. When she finally suggested they go out, Frank muttered something, threw on a t-shirt, and dragged himself out the door. At the market, it became clear that he wasn't interested in spending time with her. He walked ahead of her, didn't hold her hand, barely acknowledged her presence. When she paused to admire a pair of delicate seashell earrings in a small shop, she realized she'd left her purse behind. She stepped out to ask Frank for help, but he was gone. She spotted him a few stalls down, scrolling through his phone. "Why did you just leave me?" she asked. He shrugged. "You should have called." No apology. No concern, she thought. She told him she wanted the earrings. He glanced toward the shop and sighed. "Let's just come back tomorrow." This place is boring. Kelly clenched her jaw but said nothing. It wasn't worth fighting. Back at the resort, she tried to reset her mood with a swim, but Frank had other plans. He grabbed her wrist before she could leave the room. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked, already pulling her close. Again, he had sex with her. Again, it was rushed. Again, it left her feeling hollow. Afterward, she made it to the pool, alone. Surrounded by happy couples and laughing families. She felt like a ghost drifting in the middle of a celebration she didn't belong to. That evening, she picked up her phone, hoping for a message from George. A missed call. Something. But there was nothing. No signal. No texts. No notifications. Just silence. The next morning, Kelly woke early, alone again. Frank was still asleep, sprawled across the bed, one arm hanging off the edge, snoring faintly. She quietly pulled on her bikini and a sheer cover-up, craving the calm of the ocean breeze. As she walked the beach, she tried to convince herself she was doing the right thing. That this week, this escape, was exactly what she had needed. But the longer she walked, the more distant it all felt. When she finally returned to the suite, it was past 10. Frank was still asleep. She took a quick shower, dressed, grabbed her purse, and decided to head to the local market alone. This time, she knew what she wanted, the seashell earrings from the day before. The thought gave her a strange spark of joy. She hurried to the stall, heart fluttering, only to find they were gone. "I'm sorry," said the vendor. "Someone bought them last night." It was a one-of-a-kind piece. Kelly stood there, stunned. It was just a pair of earrings, but it felt like something had been stolen from her. Like she had missed something important. She thanked the woman quietly and wandered the market, trying to find anything similar. Nothing came close. Then she saw them. A couple, hand in hand, laughing. The woman was wearing her earrings. She didn't approach them. She didn't say a word. Because the way they smiled at each other, like nothing else in the world mattered, told her everything she needed to know. That moment wasn't meant for her. She returned to the hotel with a strange hollowness in her chest. Frank greeted her with a grin, a half-empty wine bottle already on the table. "Hey, you're back," he said, stretching lazily. "Come here. Give me some love." Before she could react, he grabbed her, pulled her to the bed, and kissed her. They had sex again, but something in her had changed. She moved. She breathed. But it felt automatic. Disconnected. When it ended, she lay staring at the ceiling. Frank reached for his glass, completely oblivious. "Damn, that was good," he muttered. "You're something else." Kelly forced a smile. But inside, her mind was spinning. The next morning, Kelly tried to shake off the feeling. She gently nudged Frank's shoulder. "I want to go on a tour today," she whispered. "Come with me." Frank groaned and turned away. "Go wherever you want," he said, not even looking at her. "I'll be here." That was it. No interest. No effort. Just dismissal. She left without another word, heading to the front desk of the resort. "I'd like to book a guided island tour," she said. Of course, the receptionist smiled. "It's a paid service. May I have your card?" Kelly handed it over. Swipe. Error. Swipe again. Another error. "That's strange," the receptionist murmured. "One moment." A third attempt. Declined. "I'm sorry," she said. "Your card appears to be canceled." Kelly's stomach dropped. No, that can't be right. She reached for her phone to call George. No signal. Panic bubbled in her chest. She rushed back to the room. Frank was still in bed, groggy. She shook him hard. "My card isn't working. My phone has no service. I think something's wrong." Frank sat up, rubbed his face, and groaned. "Relax. He's just messing with you. He'll get over it." "No," she snapped. "I want to go back. Today." Frank sighed. "Fine. Whatever." He wandered into the bathroom and locked the door behind him. Kelly stood frozen. Minutes passed. Then finally, he stepped out, dripping water, a towel lazily wrapped around his waist. "You got what you wanted," he said. "We're here. We're having fun." She looked at him, unsure. "Are we?" she whispered. Frank's grin faded. "What do you mean?" "I don't feel anything anymore," she said softly. He chuckled. "That's just your guilt talking." Then he stepped forward. "Come on. Let me fix that." He grabbed her and kissed her hard, dragging her toward the bed. She tried to pull back, but he didn't notice or didn't care. He pushed her down and had sex with her again. She didn't resist, but she didn't respond either. When it was over, he rolled off without a word and reached for his wine. Kelly lay still, tears silently rolling down her face. Kelly wiped her tears and quietly pulled the sheets over her. Frank was already halfway through his second glass of wine, flipping through TV channels like nothing had happened. She curled up, eyes on the ceiling, trying to gather herself. She wanted to call George. She needed to. Maybe he was angry. She could live with that, but surely he'd still care. He'd answer, right? She reached for her phone again. No signal. Frustrated, she grabbed Frank's phone from the nightstand. Don't, she whispered to herself, but she was already dialing George's number. It rang, and rang, and rang. No answer. Again. Still nothing. Her hand trembled. She clenched her jaw, dialed again. Voicemail. Panic began to rise, slow and suffocating. Frank glanced over. What's going on now? My phone's still not working, she said. And I think my card's been shut off. Frank waved a hand dismissively. He's just playing games. I want to go home. Then buy a ticket. I can't, she snapped. I don't have access to anything. He raised an eyebrow. Don't look at me. I'm not paying for another ticket. That's on you. Her mouth fell open slightly. I thought you said this was our vacation. He gave a dry laugh. It is. For the week. You wanted this, remember? She turned away, sick to her stomach. That night, she tried calling George again. Over and over. Still no answer. She left voicemails. Texted apologies. Please. Nothing went through. The next day, Frank woke up late again and immediately reached for her. Kelly just lay there, numb. He kissed her, touched her, had sex with her again. She didn't stop him, but she didn't react either. Every time, it was the same. He'd finish, roll over, fall asleep. She never cried during. Only after. By the fourth day, her soul felt scraped raw. Her body moved on autopilot. Frank kept calling it fun, but all Kelly felt was emptiness. She tried to convince herself that this was the freedom she'd wanted. The adventure. The passion. But it wasn't. It never was. When the vacation finally ended, Kelly was silent the entire flight back. Frank snored beside her, satisfied. She stared out the window, heart racing. She wanted George. She wanted to go home, run into his arms, cry, beg him to forgive her, promise she'd change. When they landed, she didn't wait for Frank. She threw her suitcase into the first cab and rushed home. The house came into view, and her heart lifted until she noticed something was wrong. The lawn was trimmed, but the flowers were different. The door was painted a new color. The curtains were gone. She felt a chill crawl up her back. Still, she walked up and tried her key. It didn't turn. She tried again. Nothing. She rang the doorbell. Different chime. Then, the door opened. A young woman stood there, someone Kelly had never seen before. Ponytail, oversized sweatshirt, barefoot. Can I help you? The woman asked. Kelly blinked. This is my house. The woman tilted her head. I think you're mistaken. My husband and I bought this house a few days ago. No, Kelly said, shaking her head. No, this is my home. I live here. I'm Kelly Smith. My husband is George. The woman's face shifted. A hint of pity. Oh, George Smith. Yes, he was the previous owner. A man's voice echoed from inside. Everything okay, babe? He appeared behind the woman. Tall, firm posture, clearly protective. She says she's George Smith's wife, the woman explained. The man narrowed his eyes. Sorry, lady. He sold this place. We have the deed. It's ours now. Please leave. Kelly stepped back, heart pounding, suitcase handle slipping in her hand. No, he can't. If you don't go, the man added, we'll have to call the police. Police. That word landed like a hammer. Kelly turned and walked away quickly, dragging her suitcase behind her. She didn't stop until she was far down the street. Her breath came in short gasps. Her eyes burned. George had sold the house. He had erased her. She found the nearest convenience store, bought the cheapest burner phone she could afford, and called the only person left. Her mother. Kelly stood in front of her mother's house, shivering, though it wasn't from the cold. The familiar chime of the old doorbell echoed through the hallway, and when the door opened, her mother stood there with a face like stone. She didn't greet her, didn't ask questions. She simply stepped aside. Kelly wheeled her suitcase in, her legs wobbling beneath her. The scent inside hadn't changed, lavender air freshener, old wood, something vaguely comforting. But the silence was sharp, cutting. She sank into the living room couch, exhaling shakily. Her mother didn't sit. Instead, she took out her phone, dialed a number, and held it to her ear. She's here, she said. That's all. Then hung up and disappeared into the kitchen. Kelly's heart skipped. Who did she call? Before she could ask, the doorbell rang again. Hope surged in her chest. George. He had come? He still cared? She rushed to the door and yanked it open, her breath catching. It wasn't George. A stranger stood on the porch. Dark jacket, clipboard in hand, manila envelope tucked under one arm. Mrs. Kelly Smith, he asked. She nodded slowly. He handed her the envelope. You've been served. Before she could speak, he raised his phone and snapped a photo of her holding the papers, proof of delivery, then turned and walked away without another word. Kelly just stood there, frozen. The envelope weighed 1,000 pounds in her hands. She turned back toward her mother, still standing there, still silent, still cold. Kelly collapsed onto the couch and tore the envelope open with trembling fingers. Divorce papers. Legal jargon filled the first few pages. Attached were copies of hotel bills, transcripts of conversations, screenshots of her messages to Frank, audio recordings, proof upon proof upon proof. Taped to the last page was a small USB drive. A note read, "Watch this." She sat down at her mother's laptop and plugged it in. A video loaded. She hesitated, then clicked play. There he was, George, standing on their hill, the one where he had proposed. Wind brushing through his hair. Calm. Unreadable. "Hey, Kelly," he began. "If you're watching this, then I guess you've already done what you had to do." Her breath caught. "Well," he continued, "now it's my turn. I've sent copies of all your messages and recordings to your employer in Delaware, and to Frank's wife." She was thrilled to receive them. Kelly's stomach dropped. He went on. "Frank is likely unemployed by now. And you? Well, I've made sure you'll struggle for a long, long time. You threatened to ruin me. You wanted to destroy my name. Guess what? You failed." Then, George held something up to the camera. Her wedding dress. The one she had stored in the closet for years. The one she thought she might pass down one day. "I saved this," he said, voice low. "But not anymore." He poured gasoline over it. Her mouth fell open. "Consider this a symbol of your choices." He lit a match. The flame bloomed and swallowed the fabric whole. She gasped aloud as her dress curled and burned, piece by piece. Ash and lace, once a symbol of love, now gone. She sat there, shaking, until the video ended. 7 months. That's how long it took for the courts to finalize everything. 7 months of filings, court dates, hearings, and watching Kelly twist herself into legal knots trying to salvage something, anything. But she had no leverage left. Ron, my lawyer, had warned me from the start. We're going to be cold, precise, ruthless. And we were. The moment Ron played the audio of Kelly threatening to file false domestic abuse charges, the judge's demeanor changed completely. Whatever sympathy she might have hoped for vanished. Any chance of her turning the tables? Gone. I never looked at her during the proceedings. Not once. She had already taken enough from me. I wouldn't even give her the dignity of my attention. The house. Sold. The proceeds? Split. Because I wanted her to know I didn't owe her a damn thing. She tried to fight it. She cried. Claimed she was emotionally manipulated. Even said Frank pressured her into everything. The court didn't buy it. A few weeks after the final hearing, Kelly left town. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't care. Today, I live in a sleek condo not far from my office. No shared closets. No pictures of fake smiles. No memories of the lies she told. Just clean walls. A clean bed. A clean conscience. At first, the silence was deafening. I didn't know how to be alone. But I got used to it. I started going to the gym. At first, it was just something to do. Burn time, burn thoughts. Then I started to see changes. In my body. In my energy. In how people looked at me. Stronger. Sharper. Calmer. No, I'm not some cover model. But I like the man I see in the mirror now. People ask me if I'd ever love again. I don't know. Maybe. I think it'll happen when it's supposed to. But this time, I won't settle for someone who makes me feel like a placeholder. I want depth. Loyalty. Truth. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time. And take care of your peace.